Hi friends! Welcome to Wednesdays with Whitney. I'm Whitney, and today I'm here with Sarah Brown Wessling.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Sarah, it was and still is in my heart National Teacher of the Year in 2010. So that was actually the year after 2 years after?
2 years after.
2 years after
Yeah.
I graduated from high school, and I had her in AP English.
I know.
Yes.
So our story.
And she is still a teacher at Johnston High School, still engaging with those students, and I can only imagine making an amazing impact. And we'll talk a little bit more today about our teacher-student relationship and how that's grown and changed. And she is an amazing mom of 3 beautiful, beautiful babies that are not babies anymore.
Not babies.
Even a little.
Not even a little.
But when I knew her, she just had one, and it was a baby. So it's kind of crazy now that we're here.
Yeah,
So the cool thing that's going to happen today is that I have no idea what's happening today because Sarah is going to be asking me the questions. So I'm actually going to let her take it away.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that we don't always get to see on, Wednesdays with Whitney, because you do such a great job pulling out other people's stories. And so when we were talking about this, I said, let me do what I love to do, which is be the teacher.
Yes, and I love it.
And let me ask you the questions.
Yeah.
So we all know, maybe we'll go backtrack to the story of how we met.
Back to the day.
I think so. But actually, before we do that, I have this question that I've always wanted to ask you, because we already know so many wonderful things about you.
Yeah.
We know how you are empowering women. We know how you're creating community. We know that you're doing this, all kind of through the lens of your camera.
Yeah.
But I really want to know what's going on in your mind behind the camera.
When I'm
what
shooting?
do you see? Yeah, I want to know what you see.
That's a great question. So one of the, I'm going to start with another question that's going to lead into this. I shoot in my studio all the time.
Right.
And so people frequently ask, like, do you get bored? And I have to say the studio is my favorite place in the whole world. And it's because so many different people walk in here, and they're walking into the same space. They're walking into an even playing field.
Yeah.
There's no magic tricks here. There's no bells and whistles. It is just me and this person in front of me. And when I'm photographing someone, I'm really watching them. So like actually physically watching your movements and seeing like how do you feel most comfortable. I'm really watching to see if you're breathing.
That's interesting.
Because so many times people
you just hold your breath.
They hold your
it
breath.
must change how you
Exactly.
look.
Your shoulders go up a little higher. Your smile isn't natural. So I think that a lot of times I can be having the worst day.
Yeah.
And if I'm shooting, I don't think about it.
Right.
Shooting for me is a reflex, and it's so much about the connection that's happening like in that moment.
Right.
It is probably the most present I ever am in my entire day.
Right. Absolutely.
And so I don't know if I'm actually, other than who's in front of me,
Right.
I'm not sure I'm actually thinking all that much. It's so reactionary.
Yeah. So I think that's so fascinating, because really what I hear is that you are trying to, you're creating art, first of all. I mean, when you're totally present with anything, you're in the midst of art, and that's what you're doing. But you're giving these gifts to people. That's what I always see in your artwork. I mean, whether I'm at the studio or whether I'm online looking at it, or we're hanging out and I'm looking at it, I always see the way you see somebody's story. And I always see the way that you can see in somebody what they don't see in themselves, which in some way is our connection, like our professional connection.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's a lot of times how I feel about the classroom.
Oh, absolutely.
But so how do you know when you've got a story?
Oh my gosh. So when somebody walks in, usually people are really nervous when they walk into this space. And Winston helps that. But I think the other thing, Winston trots up and says hello in his little cute way. Yeah. But I think the other thing is it takes time.
Right.
And so I do try to spend time with my client. And when I see, there's a moment in every shoot where I see them relax, I see them give in to the good part of the experience, and then I know I can really do my job. Yeah. Like all of it leading up to that was just like warming them up, letting them feel comfortable, and then it's so interesting that people think that I'm showing them something that maybe isn't quite themselves, or like, or is the best version of themselves. And I'm like, I didn't do anything but create space for the person next to me, the person in front of me, to be themselves. So that's really, it's your story. It's the person in front of me's story.
I love that idea of creating space, because when we talk about teaching, and when I think about that work, and I think about the work actually of listening, I think about that you create space. And I think about the importance of asking a question. Really what a question does is it creates space between two people, and it's like a pulley. It pulls somebody back.
I love that.
And like that's what you're doing. You know, when you talk about that space, you're listening, but you are listening with a lens.
Well, I'm listening with my eyes. And I think each time I see someone relax a little bit more, I can ask for more. There's this increment. I think it happens in all aspects of our lives. When I look back, 10 years ago, where I am now would be unimaginable. Like I couldn't have comprehended it, but that happens so small, in such small ways every single day. And I think when people come into this space, their first thought is nerves, like a little bit of fear, just generally being scared that maybe they're not going to be able to do it, or maybe they won't get a good photo. And so it's just every single frame that happens is moving that person forward. And like I know the second somebody walks in, it's going to be fine. But they don't know that. They have no idea.
But they don't know that.
Exactly.
And they're trusting you.
Yes, it's huge.
Absolutely.
That's probably the best and most impactful part of the job on me is the amazing amount of trust that people put in me. It's crazy. And I love it. I love that I'm able to do that justice.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that's interesting about this relationship is that it's long.
It's very long.
It's long.
You're one of my longest people.
I am one of your longest people. Which I think is also really interesting, because what that means is I have this other vantage point about your story.
Yes, she does. She knew me in high school.
I knew you in high school. And we all see who you are now. Confident, articulate, strong, empowered. Like I could just list all the adjectives, right? And it's not that you haven't always been that, but I also know that you had to grow into it. You weren't born this way. You were maybe born to do this, but you had to still grow into it. So maybe, can we go back?
Let's go back.
Let's go back.
You and my mom have a very interesting perspective on this part of my world.
So I want to tell your people, like my memory of meeting you.
Okay.
So I remember meeting you. I'm teaching in this upstairs classroom with these two big windows, big huge tree. I remember that part really specifically, and I remember you coming into the classroom, and I remember you being quiet. But pensive. So we would always put the desks in this kind of half circle in the front of the classroom, and you would always sit off onto the corner, like kind of off to the side of it, and you would constantly kind of go between like taking notes and then kind of going like this, and then like taking notes and going like this. And I do remember that it took at least a half of a year, if not a little bit longer, for me to hear your voice, like really hear your voice. And to kind of hear that confidence emerging. So, I mean, I think that it would be interesting to hear. What do you remember about this transformation, or what do you want people to know about your transformation?
I remember I remember certain parts of this class, because I walked into AP English. I'd always loved to read. Reading was my escape. There were times in my life where I read 5 or 6 books a week. That was all I did. Back when books were thinner and the words were bigger. now I still, I read, but it's, one Audible book a week, and I feel really special about that.
Absolutely, as you should.
But I remember walking into that classroom, and Sarah has a very amazing reputation for being a challenging but understanding, and I say challenging in the best sense of the word, that she's going to bring whatever you have in you, she's going to bring it out. And I really remember thinking that your classroom was the first time I ever actually thought. Like, thought in a, not just like A to B to C, but that there were multiple answers to a question and that I could craft my own response and it wasn't multiple choice. Yeah. It was the first time that I really felt like there were answers that I could create rather than answers I had to find. So
that's really powerful.
Yeah, I just said that.
You just said that.
That was really good.
That was really good. That's like the kind of thing that as a teacher I like go back stuff down.
Crazy.
That's the kind of stuff.
Well, we'll go back into it and we'll find it because that was we had a moment.
Yeah,
there.
we did. But that is who you have become.
Yeah.
Right.
The person my own answers.
You're right, and the person who creates. Yeah. That it's not. It has not been for you about saying this is the linear path, and these are steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah.
That wouldn't have worked very well for me.
No, I mean you've been creating. Yeah.
But I think that there have been elements of my story that have been very linear. I mean, I did the AP English and I did the AP classes in high school, and honestly my senior year I only took AP English classes and I was like not in school as much as possible. Surprisingly to everyone, I did not love high school. That was not my place. But I did love Miss Westling's classroom. And then I went and got my 4-year degree. Yep. And then I went to grad school because I thought that was the next step. And then really grad school taught me, I don't always look back on those years fondly, but grad school taught me not to follow the rules because they didn't necessarily get me to where I wanted to be.
Right.
And it taught me that I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
Like that I didn't fit in there.
Yeah.
And that was okay. And that actually worked to my advantage because now I had to find my own way, my own path, my own rules. Right. And I had to learn to speak up for myself.
Yeah. So one of my, so I'm a quote person, I'm a quote person, and I love them. And one of them that I've been thinking about a lot lately comes from this wonderful man. He was this professor in the 1970s. He wrote this little lovely book called Love. His name is Leo Buscliaga, and he, if I said that right, probably not.
Challenging.
So I'm going to paraphrase this, but he says, the hardest battle we will ever fight is the one to be just you. The hardest battle you will ever fight is the one to be just you. And I think about that all the time.
Yes.
And I think about your journey and the story that I see about you from the outside looking in. And how hard has it been to be just you? Like in this world of competition, in this world of branding, in this world of building your own space, how hard is it to be just you? I know. See, we're back in class and I'm asking the big questions.
This is something I've been thinking a lot about lately.
Yeah.
On several different levels, because now I have people who know me before they know me.
Sure.
Which is an interesting...
Something I can relate to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's just an interesting space to be. I just hired a new employee and she said, I thought you were going to be a lot peppier. She thought I was going to... And I was like, no, I'm actually can be pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And I like my alone time and my space. And I think something that now that I'm 2 years into business... Yeah. And I'm loving what I'm doing. It's kind of time to find more time and space for me. And I think I'm gonna try to have a hobby again.
A hobby?
A hobby!
You should have a hobby.
I'm looking for a new hobby.
Yeah.
When I say that, people are like, wait, isn't photography your hobby? And not at all.
No.
Like I don't do it the same way that other people do.
No.
Is writing your hobby? I know this isn't my space.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, yes and no. Well, writing is special for me.
Okay, because it's like it is your job in a sense, but I feel like it's also your passion and your hobby.
So I think that's actually a really good. This is like a really good thing to think about because I have to write. So my job is to teach, which never feels like a job.
Right.
It never feels like a job.
The actual photography part doesn't feel like a job.
No. Putting grades in Infinite Campus feels like a job that I hate.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like
yes.
But the person to person, human to human, like that never feels like work. That feels like a privilege.
Yeah. Yes.
So the writing though is just it's the stuff I have to get out. So I have to write because I have excess. That's how I feel.
Yes.
Like there's an excess of thought, there's an excess of emotion, there's an excess of sadness, of celebration, whatever it is. And I somehow have to get that out.
Yeah.
And so writing, I suppose, is cathartic in that way, but also a necessity, which is really different than hobby.
Yes.
Because hobby fuels everything else. So, like I run.
Yes.
I love to run.
I was thinking about that.
Actually, I love to cook. I love music.
Yes.
I cannot sing to save my life.
But we can enjoy.
But I love music.
Sarah's one of my festival buddies.
Yes.
So we do a lot of festivaling.
I do a solo hiking trip every year.
Where'd you go this year?
I went to Washington State, went to Olympic National Park, So, and I would say those kinds of things are my hobbies.
Yeah.
And they're so essential to everything else.
Yeah.
Because it's what I teach from. So if being behind the camera is your art, being in a classroom space or a learning space is mine, and I can't teach from nothing. You know, like I have to have a life in order to teach from it. Otherwise, I can't connect to the people. I don't know why you love those tennis shoes so much. Like, you know, like if I don't know why you love those tennis shoes so much. And if I don't take the space to cultivate the hobbies, then I forget why I do all of the other things.
Yes. Finding joy, finding your own bit of joy. That for me, that's travel.
Yep.
I blocked this year. I blocked 8 weeks where I'm gonna go away, awesome. And those are 8 weeks that I'm not in Des Moines because I work a weekend job, like here, but I also work 5 days a week here. So there'll be weeks and weeks on end where there's where I work every day. Right. So for me, leaving the state is now.
You have to.
I have to.
Otherwise, you don't. Actually, stop.
Yeah, I took a day away from the studio yesterday, and I was like, "Whoa, what's that?" Yeah. And part of it, when I'm not here, I think about it here, and I miss it here. Yeah. But then when I'm at home on my couch, just like chilling with my dog, I'm like, okay. Yeah. Like that's a rejuvenating space. Yeah. I color.
Really?
I color a lot.
I didn't know this.
Yes,
this is a revelation.
I color a lot, and I've done this since I did this in high school and college. I did a lot of paint by numbers because while people think that it is very cathartic because there's a roadmap there, and I find that so frequently I'm creating
that you have to. I know
exactly.
I'm
creating my own path and my own space, and then honestly with my hobbies, I want to be told what to do. Yeah. So when I don't run fair. Because it would take too much of my own self-motivation
to do it.
And I don't have any left after here. No. So I go to classes, I do kickboxing, or I go and see Hunter at any time, and they have classes and they kick my butt. Hi, Hunter. But I really like step-by-step instructions in my hobbies. Yeah.
Because you're looking for that balance.
Exactly.
Right? You're looking for the balance because it does. I think this is one of the things that probably gets underestimated in the work that you do, is that the creative energy it takes to be present for another human being is substantial.
It's huge.
It really is. Yeah. And if and I'm sure everybody can think of a time when they have to exert that kind of an energy, whether it's as a parent or as a friend or in their profession, but to be fully present in anything, it takes all of you. Yeah. And if you're doing that days on end, not even to mention the business part of it. Oh, which is the whole other thing that that's the whole other ball of wax.
Yeah, that's 90% of the time. Right. And then 10% of the time I get to photograph.
Right. But I'm guessing the emotional investment, the energy that you have to exert in that 10% has to equal the 90%.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yes. I had in December I didn't realize it, but I had scheduled a lot of group, photographing whole firms or whole businesses.
Remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I counted it up. I'll never do this again. I will never count. And I photographed over 150 individual people that month. Yeah. And I remember going home for Christmas, going home to my mom's and sitting there, and we were chatting, and I just was like, I can't talk anymore. Like I
just need to be done.
I just was done. And the thing that I realized was, you know, with those, when you're shooting a whole firm of people, it's at every single 10 minutes, there's a new person in front of you, and
you're all back to zero.
You start all over. Yep. And the worst thing would be somebody to come to me and not feel like I had given them everything
that you have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because like that's what they're showing up for. That's what I'm showing up for.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not showing up and doing that, then
why show up?
Why show up? I should call in sick.
Right.
Which doesn't actually happen when you're a business owner. I'm sure all you other business owners can relate that you don't get to call in sick.
Absolutely.
I have shot very sick, and people ask me that, like, what happens when you're sick? And I'm like, I'm just not.
Yeah.
I take a lot of medicine.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that's also interesting, like that notion of solitude that you need.
Oh, I love it.
You know, that moment when you said, I just can't talk anymore. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel when I hike. So I go by myself so that I don't talk, you know, because in addition to the classroom, I'm writing and speaking and traveling and doing all of these and parenting. Parenting. Working on getting my kids brush their teeth.
Just do the small things.
You know, the big stuff.
Yeah.
But when I walk, when I hike, I always just listen to myself. So that's when I stop talking.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, like, I pay attention to myself and I think, all right, when is she going to show up again? And eventually, sometimes it even takes a couple of days. Yeah. I just like, oh, there you are, Sarah.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you again. Like, that's who you are.
That's your calm brain.
Yeah, but you have to, there has to be that balance, right? And I know that so many of the people who are watching, who are, loving all of the work that you do and are, I think, really not only indebted to, but enamored with the way that you are empowering people. Yeah. I think it's important for everybody to remember this kind of balance.
Well, and I think I've been talking to a lot of small business owners, a lot of people who push really hard about the idea of balance, and I just kind of have thrown my hands up and say, I don't have that. I don't have balance. It's not even something I'm quite seeking. Mm-hmm. What I do work really hard on is finding space.
Yes.
So when I need space, I take it, or I try to take it, or I try to acknowledge that I need it, and then schedule time for it. Yeah. Or I'm someone, my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. So this affects some more than others.
Yeah.
But because I do,
because you have to.
Because I have to. But those phone calls are important. But when I take them, I want to make sure I am prepared to take a phone call.
Right.
Because I think that anytime you're in front of another person, you should be with them. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really important to me. And I never want to be interrupted by a text message or a phone call. Even if it's a work phone call, I would rather call that person back and give them my all than like answer it in front of them. Oh, just like, I can't do that.
Right. And I think you're really talking about a practice. You're talking about creating habits. You're talking about a way of being. I mean, it's so easy to fall into just the opposite of that. And I agree. I'm bad at balance. Yeah. I'm bad at balance, but I work really, really hard at it.
Yeah.
But that I can definitely say I struggle with it constantly. Like I'm engaged in the balance struggle.
And trying really hard.
Yeah.
But it's just not happening.
And for me, I found that it. This is one of the things that has been part of my transformation story.
Yeah.
I used to think I could compartmentalize everything.
Yeah.
I used to think that I could have the teacher box and the mom box and the sister box and the whatever, But what happened was, as I kept compartmentalizing them, they just started stacking on top of each other, and I felt heavy.
Yeah.
And so I asked myself, what would happen if I stopped compartmentalizing and started integrating? And really changed my life. Because I started to see, being a parent impacts being a teacher.
Absolutely, and you can see how those things make each other stronger.
Stronger.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's waves, right? It's waves.
Well, and I think this idea of integration, I was just, I was photographing an event at Iowa State. Oh, we're back. Okay, great.
Here's the pause.
Is anybody here? Can you give us a little high five? Okay, we're back. We were talking about integration, and I was just at Iowa State listening to the engineer. I think he was the head of the engineering department or something. I'm going to misquote this. And he was talking about this too, that like it's no longer about balance, it's about integration.
Yep.
And I'm super lucky that my business and my life and my friends, they're all the same people.
Yeah.
The people that I photographed are my friends.
Right.
I mean, they might not have been before,
but because of the experience,
because
you share an experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we also share similar struggles and similar successes. A lot of my clients are small business owners.
I'm sure.
And that's, I mean, I had no idea that that was going to be my path here in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be shooting like 30 weddings a year.
Yeah.
And that's what I came back thinking that was going to happen. And now, you know, I do like 15 to 20 headshots a week.
Right.
And that's so, it's all for people who are doing the same kind of work that I am. And I get to talk to people about what lights them up.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I find my peers at work.
That's wonderful, because you know what that means? It means you're not at work.
Exactly.
That's what it means.
Yes.
I mean, it means that you found a path to do, to not go to work, but to be invested in meaningful experiences.
And that's, I mean, that was the whole point. That was the whole point of going into
Right.
photography for me. That was the whole point of coming here.
Yeah.
Was that I knew that photography was my way to connect with people.
Right.
And people are always like, oh, you know, people will try to talk to me about cameras. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not your girl. Like, I don't...
You know, Annie Leibovitz says the same thing. She says the same thing.
I've been seeing this. But she's okay, don't let her fool you. She's an amazingly technical photographer. Like, she's phenomenal. Like, or she just has a Photoshop team that, like, blows your mind.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think that might be it. I have a Photoshop team, but, like, she's got Disney behind her.
Yeah.
I can't compete with that. But... and she says the same exact thing. I was just watching her the other day talk about
the same thing.
The creative life thing, right?
It was the same thing.
Absolutely same. We were watching the same thing.
Apparently.
But that it's about people.
Right.
And I've thought, you know, as I continue growing, you know, I launched a second business with Emily Steele. Hey, Miss Emily. And that's called Brand Launch, but it's really serving the same population, talking about some of the same issues, really getting into just the same stuff. And it's just, I've always thought, like, even when my body's like old and I can't stand up straight and I can't really hold a camera, I'll probably still be doing it.
Yeah.
Even if I have to like sit and do this.
I can kind of imagine.
Yeah, just see like little Whitney, because it's my connection point.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Such a beautiful story.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. It was really, really amazing to have Sarah here for so many reasons. The biggest one for me is that Sarah is somebody that has known me through all of this. And I think it was in high school. No, I was in grad school at this point.
Yep.
And Sarah contacted me and said, I would like to put you on my wall.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't remember exactly, but she wanted to know, because I was a photographer and I was doing these things. And I was like, you want to put me on your wall?
Yeah.
And it had never occurred to me that I would be somebody that would be inspirational to your students. Like, I never would have thought about that at that point in my life.
Yeah.
And I think I've been really lucky to have strong champions in my life, and you are absolutely at one of the very first and at the very top of that list.
You're an easy person to champion.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Sarah.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you, all of you. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.